On page 305, this is a great point about leaders and mobs and the individuals that are the ingredient of, well, not the ingredient, but kind of when individuals are lost, you create a mob. So it says here that a leader, you see, is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. He maintains the level of individuals. Too few individuals and a people reverts to a mob. So I think that's an important point, and I do want to discuss more of that when I do a few videos on Eric Hoffer's book, The True Believer, which talks a lot about the psychology of mobs, and I think it's very good, and I think it's also quite explains quite well what's going on with a lot of the protesters and really radical protests going on in the United States right now. But anyways, about this point here, I think it's interesting. I don't think they're quite saying that a leader is required, but it's saying that if you don't have individuals, so you don't have people who think for themselves, you create a mob. You create people like you see in those protests that are happening in the States right now. Fairly ongoing protests, I guess whenever Trump does a rally. You see people who get into groups and then act as in they're in a group. They hide their identity. They engage in violence. This is a mob. These are people. They're basically all at fault here. It's not just that there's the rhetoric that you see in the newspapers is that, well, there's a few violent people in this mob, but the mob is peaceful in general. But this is not the case. It's just not how it's not the psychology of mobs. They're all at fault. Obviously, you pick out the people who are throwing the rocks, punish for that. But the mob protects those people. You will see them engage in, for example, they will crowd around people doing that and hide them from the police, or they will pull them back or pull them away from police trying to grab them. The mob actually protects the individuals inside of them that are engaging in the violence. And why is that? It's because they're not individuals. They're not people who think for themselves. They have devolved to a mob, to a violent mob, and they're all really part of it. If you took away the, quote, peaceful people, those people that are throwing rocks would not be there. They would not do those things. They're being enabled by those people around them. And the people around them are complicit in the activities of their violent peers. So I think that's important, that the importance of thinking for oneself. It's probably why libertarians have been so difficult to organize, is because libertarians come from very different traditions, very different, and often they have different reasons for being libertarian. They're not the mob that you find in the Bernie Sanders group, for example. They're not the people who are very uneducated and tend to think in one direction and just whatever Bernie says must be true and he can't say anything wrong. Tends to be what it is. You get people from very diverse backgrounds, and it's very hard to organize those people, and it's impossible to turn them into a mob. So you don't see libertarian violent protesters. It just doesn't exist. But you definitely see Bernie Sanders violent protests, and in a lesser extent, you'll see Trump protests like that. But that's the reason.